Hyunwoo walked into the great hall where all the alien leaders met. His shoes made quiet sounds on the smooth floor. The ceiling was so high he could barely see the top. Hundreds of strange creatures sat in their seats, watching him with eyes that looked nothing like human eyes. He carried a small device in his hand. Inside it were all the reports from Earth. Pictures of destroyed planets, videos of burning cities, numbers that showed how many people had died. The Draconian fleet was coming and Earth needed help. The room started to get noisy. Aliens were making sounds that might have been talking or might have been laughing. Hyunwoo could not tell the difference. He had learned their language, but their emotions were still a mystery to him. Taemin stood up from his chair. His skin looked like green metal and his eyes were yellow like old coins. He was the leader of the Centauri people. They had been in space for thousands of years before humans even learned to make fire. Earth asks for help again, Taemin said. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. This is the third time this year. Do you not understand what we told you before? Hyunwoo kept his face calm. Inside he felt angry, but showing anger here would not help Earth. The Draconian fleet has destroyed 12 star systems in the past 6 months. They are moving toward our sector of space. We only ask for defensive technology, not weapons, just shields and early warning systems. More sounds came from the alien crowd. This time, Hyunwoo was sure they were laughing. A creature with too many arms waved them all at once. Another alien, covered in blue fur, made a sound like a broken engine. Your species, said another alien, has been in space for less than 200 Earth years. We have records of the Draconians that are older than your entire civilization. What makes you think you can fight them when species far older than yours have failed? Hyunwoo touched the device in his hand. We do not claim to be able to fight them. That is why we ask for help. Surely the great civilizations of the galaxy do not wish to see another species destroyed when it could be prevented. Taemin made a sound that was definitely laughter. Prevented? Young human, the Draconians have never been prevented from taking what they want. They have weapons that can crack planets, ships larger than your biggest cities. They have been conquering worlds since before your star was born. Then help us evacuate, Hyunwoo said. If we cannot fight them, at least help us save our people. The room became quiet for a moment. Then Taemin spoke again. There are over 8 billion humans on Earth. Do you know how many ships it would take to move that many people? Do you know how much it would cost? And where would they go? Every habitable world is already claimed. An alien that looked like a walking tree spoke up. The Draconians serve a purpose in this galaxy. They remove the weak species. Those who cannot defend themselves do not deserve to continue. This is the natural way of things. Hyunwoo felt his anger growing stronger, but he pushed it down. Natural? There is nothing natural about genocide. You speak of genocide, Taemin said, but you do not understand the galaxy. Species rise and fall like waves on an ocean. Humans are just one wave among many. If you cannot survive, something else will take your place. Something stronger. The device in Hyunwoo's hand grew warm. The reports inside contained images that would give anyone nightmares. Entire worlds turned to glass by draconian weapons. Cities melted into metal and stone. Billions of people who had lived and loved and hoped all turned to ash in seconds. We are not asking you to fight for us, Hyunwoo said. We are asking you to remember that once your species were all so young, someone helped you grow strong. Someone gave you the knowledge you needed to survive. A creature with 6 legs and no visible head spoke through a device on its chest. Our ancestors earned their knowledge through struggle. They were not given gifts by those who came before. Strength that is given freely is not real strength. What about trade? Hyunwoo asked. Earth has resources, rare metals, scientific knowledge. We have developed new ways of growing food in space. Surely there is something we can offer in exchange for protection. The laughter started again, louder this time. Taemin raised one of his metal-colored hands, and the room became quiet. Human, he said. What could a species that has barely left its home system possibly offer to civilizations that span thousands of worlds? Your metals, we can create in our machines. Your food, We can grow better in our laboratories. Your science is so far behind ours that your greatest discoveries are toys to our children. Hyunwoo looked around the room. So many different species, so many different forms of life. Some looked almost human. Others were so alien he could not even guess what parts of their bodies were heads and what parts were limbs. All of them were more advanced than humanity. All of them were older, stronger, more experienced. Then we will face the Draconians alone, he said. This brought the loudest laughter yet. Even Taemin seemed to find this amusing. Alone? Human, your entire fleet, could not defeat a single Draconian battleship. They have weapons that you cannot imagine. They have shields that your strongest missiles cannot scratch. They have been perfecting the art of war for longer than your species has existed. We will try, Hyunwoo said simply. Try? The tree-like alien spoke again. You will die, all of you. And then the galaxy will continue as it always has. New species will rise to take your place. Perhaps they will be wiser than humans. Perhaps they will know their place in the order of things. Hyunwoo put the device back in his pocket. There was no point in showing the images now. These aliens had made their decision long before he entered this room. They would watch Earth burn, and they would learn nothing from it. Thank you for your time, he said. I will report your decision to my government. As he turned to leave, Taemin called out to him. Human, you should use your remaining time wisely. Make peace with your gods. Prepare your people for the end. The Draconians show mercy to those who surrender quickly. Hyunwoo stopped walking. He turned back to look at the alien leader. And if we choose not to surrender? Then you will learn why they are called Draconians, Taemin said. They will make your dying slow. They will make it painful. They will make it a lesson for any other young species who think they can stand against the natural order. Hyunwoo nodded once. Then he left the great hall, walking past guards and servants, past aliens who looked at him with what might have been pity or what might have been curiosity about a dead man walking. Outside the building, he looked up at the alien sky. 3 different suns hung above him, casting strange shadows in colors that Earth had no names for. Soon he would return to his own world, under his own familiar yellow sun. He would tell his leaders what had happened here. Earth would stand, alone against the greatest military force in the galaxy. Every species that had faced the Draconians before had fallen. There was no reason to think humans would be different. But as Hyunwoo walked toward his ship, he found himself thinking about something the aliens had not considered. They were right that humans were young. They were right that human technology was primitive. They were right that human weapons were weak. But there was one thing they did not understand about humans. When faced with impossible odds, humans did not always choose the wise path. Sometimes they chose to fight anyway. The ship that would carry him home to Earth was small and ugly compared to the vessels that surrounded it. Human technology looked crude next to alien engineering. But it would get him home. And once he was there, Earth would prepare for war in the only way it knew. How? By refusing to give up. 3 months after Hyunwoo returned from the Galactic Council, the first reports came in. Long-range sensors picked up massive energy signatures at the edge of the solar system. Admiral So-young stood in the command center deep under the city of Seoul, watching the screens that showed dots moving through space. Each dot was a Draconian ship. There were thousands of them. How many? She asked the young officer beside her. The computer is still counting, Admiral, said Jae-sung, his fingers moving quickly over his keyboard. Current estimate is over 200,000 vessels. The largest ones are... He paused, checking his numbers again. Admiral, some of these ships are bigger than our moon. So-young had been a soldier for 30 years. She had fought in 3 different wars and commanded fleets in battles across human space. She had never been afraid of an enemy before, but, looking at those dots on her screen, she felt something cold settle in her stomach. Time until they reach Earth? She asked. At current speed, about 72 hours, Admiral. 72 hours. 3 days for 8 billion people to prepare for the end of everything they had ever known. Send word to all defense stations, So-young ordered. Begin evacuation procedures for all major cities. Move everyone to the underground shelters and get me a direct line to the president. While Jae-sung worked at his station, So Young walked to the great wall of screens that showed the solar system. Earth hung in the center, a small blue dot surrounded by the orbital platforms and defense stations that humanity had built over the past 50 years. It all looked so fragile now. The door behind her opened, and engineer Minho walked in. His hair was messy, and his clothes looked like he had been wearing them for days. He probably had been. For the past 3 months, he had been working nonstop in the research laboratories. "Admiral," he said, "we need to talk." So Young turned to look at him. Minho was one of the smartest people on Earth. If anyone could find a way to fight the Draconians, it would be him. But he looked tired and worried. "Tell me you have good news," she said. Minho shook his head. "I have strange news. Maybe good news. I am not sure yet." He led her to a smaller room where they could talk privately. On the table was a device that looked like nothing So Young had ever seen before. It was about the size of a book, but it seemed to be made of light and shadow, instead of metal and plastic. "What is it?" she asked. "We call it a quantum disruptor," Minho said. "But that name does not really explain what it does. It is based on research we have been doing into the fundamental structure of reality." So Young sat down. She had learned to be patient when Minho started talking about his science. Usually the important part came at the end. "For the past 2 years," Minho continued, "my team has been studying something strange. We noticed that space itself behaves differently around Earth than it does around other planets. Not much. The difference is so small that our instruments could barely measure it." "What kind of difference?" "Reality is more flexible here. The laws of physics are the same, but they can be adjusted, slightly, if you know how." So Young looked at the device. On the table, it was humming very quietly, and the light coming from it seemed to move in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "We think it has something to do with how humans think," Minho said. "Other species in the galaxy, they accept the universe as it is. They work within the rules that exist. But humans have always been different. We imagine things that do not exist and then we make them real. We dream of flying, so we build machines that fly. We dream of traveling to the stars, so we build ships that can reach them. And this device? We dreamed of making our enemies disappear, so we built a machine that can make dreams come true." So, Young picked up the device. It was warm, and it seemed to vibrate slightly in her hands. "How does it work?" "I am not entirely sure," Minho admitted. "The mathematics are beyond anything we have ever done before. But the basic idea is that we convince the universe that something never existed in the first place. Not destroy it, not move it somewhere else, just edit it out of reality." "Have you tested it?" "On small things, asteroids, empty ships, it works perfectly. But Admiral, we have never tried it on anything as large as a Draconian fleet. And we have never tried it on living beings." So Young put the device back on the table. "How many of these can you make?" "We have been building them for the past month. We have 50 devices ready, and we are working on more. But each one takes time to create and the materials are difficult to obtain. 50 devices to stop 200,000 ships? One device can affect multiple targets if they are close together. The Draconians travel in tight formations. We might be able to remove entire sections of their fleet at once." So Young stood up and walked to the small window that looked out into the research laboratory. She could see dozens of scientists and engineers working at strange machines. They all looked tired, but they were still working. Even though they knew the odds, they were still trying. "There is something else," Minho said quietly. "The devices work best when the operator believes they will work. Doubt seems to interfere with the quantum field. Whoever uses these in battle will need to have complete faith in the technology." "Faith in technology that you admit you do not fully understand?" "Faith in the idea that humans can do impossible things when they need to." A loud alarm started ringing throughout the command center. So Young ran back to the main room where Jae-sung was staring at his screens with wide eyes. "Admiral," he said, "the Draconian fleet just changed course. They are moving faster now. Much faster." "How much faster?" "They will be here in 18 hours. So Young looked at the wall of screens again. The dots that represented the Draconian ships were moving visibly now. getting closer to Earth with every second that passed. In 18 hours, the most powerful military force in the galaxy would arrive at humanity's doorstep. Send a message to all defense stations, she ordered. Battle stations full alert, and tell them to prepare for new orders. What kind of orders, Admiral? So Young thought about the device in the other room. Technology that might work or might not. Science that no one fully understood. A plan that required faith more than logic. Tell them we are going to try something that has never been done before. While the command center buzzed with activity, Captain Dong Hyun sat in his small ship at the very edge of the solar system. The Invisible Phoenix was humanity's newest stealth vessel, designed to hide from every kind of sensor that aliens had ever invented. Through his telescope, he could see the Draconian fleet approaching. The ships were massive beyond imagination. The smallest ones were larger than Earth's biggest cities. The largest ones looked like metal planets covered in weapons and armor. "Control, this is Phoenix," he said into his radio. "I have visual contact with the enemy fleet. Confirming earlier reports, these ships are... Admiral, I do not think our weapons can even scratch them." So Young's voice came back through the radio. "Phoenix, maintain your position and continue. Observing. Do not engage. Repeat. Do not engage." "Understood, Control." "But, Admiral, you should know. I am picking up transmissions from the fleet. They are talking about Earth. They are calling it their final victory celebration." Dong Hyun listened to more of the alien transmissions. The Draconians were not worried about human resistance. They were planning what they would do with Earth after they conquered it. Some wanted to turn it into a mining world. Others wanted to use it as a military base for future campaigns. None of them expected humans to fight back. "Control," Dong Hyun said. "They are preparing to broadcast a surrender demand to Earth. Should I jam their transmission?" "Negative, Phoenix. Let them talk. Let the whole galaxy hear what they have to say." An hour later, the Draconian surrender demand reached Earth. The message appeared on every screen and every communication device on the planet. The voice that spoke was deep and cold, like the sound of metal grinding against stone. "Humans of Earth," the voice said, "you are now within range of the Draconian Imperial fleet. Your resistance to this point has been noted and will be punished accordingly. You have 1 standard galactic hour to surrender completely. All military vessels will power down their weapons. All orbital stations will shut down their defenses. Your planetary leaders will prepare to transfer authority to Draconian commanders." The message continued for several minutes, listing the terms of surrender and the punishments that would follow any resistance. When it ended, the command center was completely quiet. "Admiral," Jae-sung said finally, "should we respond?" So Young looked at the screens showing the approaching fleet. In a few hours, those ships would be close enough to begin their attack. Earth's defenses were ready, but everyone knew they would not be enough. "No response," she said. "Let them wonder what we are thinking." "And what are we thinking, Admiral?" So Young thought about Min-ho and his impossible devices. She thought about the scientists working desperately in their laboratories. She thought about 8 billion people hiding in underground shelters, trusting their leaders to find a way to save them. "We are thinking that the Draconians are about to learn something new about humans," she said. "We are thinking that sometimes the young species has tricks that the old ones have never seen before." The Draconian fleet filled the space around Earth like a metal storm. Admiral Korth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Destroyer, and watched the small blue planet that would soon belong to his empire. He had conquered 47 worlds in his lifetime. This would be number 48. "Status report," he ordered. "All battle groups are in position, Admiral," said his second-in-command. 293,000 ships ready for combat. Long-range scanners show minimal human defenses. A few orbital platforms, some small warships. Nothing that can threaten even our smallest vessels. Korth nodded. This was exactly what he had expected. Young species always built toys and called them weapons. They never understood the true power that could be brought to bear against them. "Any response to our surrender demand?" "No, Admiral." Complete silence from the planet. This surprised Korth slightly. Most species begged for mercy when they saw his fleet. Others tried to negotiate. A few even attempted to fight back immediately. But silence? That was unusual. Perhaps they are too frightened to speak, suggested his second-in-command. Perhaps, Korth agreed. Or perhaps they are planning something stupid. Maintain full sensor sweeps. I want to know if a single human ship moves out of position. On Earth, Admiral So Young stood in the command center and watched the same space that Korth was watching. But where the Draconian Admiral saw an easy victory, So Young saw something else. She saw a chance. Report from all stations, she ordered. Defense. Station Alpha reports ready, said Jae Sung. All quantum disruptors are in position and charged. Defense Station Beta reports ready. Defense Station Gamma reports ready. One by one, all 50 defense stations reported in. Each one had a quantum disruptor. Each one had operators who had been trained in the past few hours on equipment they barely understood. Engineer Minho to the command center, So Young announced over the intercom. Minho arrived a few minutes later, still carrying tools and wearing his work clothes. His team had been making final adjustments to the disruptors right up until the last moment. Are they ready? So Young asked. As ready as we can make them, Minho replied. The field generators are stable. The quantum matrices are synchronized. But Admiral, I must tell you again, we have never tested these devices on anything this large. Will they work? I believe they will work. But belief is not the same as knowledge. So Young looked at the screens showing the Draconian fleet. The enemy ships were so large and so numerous that they blocked out the stars behind them. Each ship probably carried more firepower than Earth's entire military. Then we will find out together, she said. Captain Dong Hyun watched the scene from his hidden position. The invisible Phoenix was close enough to the Draconian fleet that he could see details on individual ships. Massive gun turrets that could level mountains. Shield generators that glowed with barely contained energy. Armor plating thick enough to stop any weapon humanity had ever built. Control, this is Phoenix, he reported. The enemy fleet is beginning to deploy into attack formation. I count at least 50 dreadnoughts in the first wave. Each one is control. Each dreadnought is larger than our biggest cities. So Young's voice came back through the radio. Phoenix, can you identify their flagship? Dong Hyun adjusted his telescope. Affirmative. Center of the formation. Ship designation appears to be Eternal Destroyer. It is approximately 30 kilometers long. Understood. Continue monitoring. Dong Hyun watched as smaller Draconian ships moved into position around their massive flagship. The formation was perfect. Exactly what military textbooks said an overwhelming force should look like when preparing to destroy a weaker enemy. But there was something strange about the human response. Earth's orbital defense platforms were powered, up and ready to fight, but the human fleet was not moving into battle formation. Instead, the ships were spread out around the planet in a pattern that made no military sense. Unless, Dong Hyun thought, they were not planning to fight the battle everyone expected. On the Eternal Destroyer, Admiral Korth was becoming impatient. His fleet had been in position for 2 hours, and the humans still had not responded to his surrender demand. Open a channel to the planet, he ordered. Channel open, Admiral. Korth's voice boomed across space, powerful enough to be heard on every communication device on Earth. Humans, your time has expired. You have chosen to remain silent instead of surrendering. This choice will cost you dearly. Prepare to witness the power of the Draconian Empire. He turned to his weapons officer. Begin with the orbital platforms. Destroy them slowly. I want the people on the planet to see what happens to those who resist us. Yes, Admiral. Targeting the first platform now. The massive guns on the Eternal Destroyer began to glow with deadly energy. Similar weapons on dozens of other ships did the same. In a few seconds, enough firepower to destroy a moon would be unleashed on humanity's pitiful defenses. In the command center under Seoul, every person watched the screens in perfect silence. They could see the Draconian weapons charging. They could calculate exactly how much destruction was about to be unleashed. All stations report ready, Jae-sung said quietly. So Young looked around the room. Scientists, soldiers, engineers, and technicians all stared at her, waiting for the order that would either save their world or doom it to destruction. She thought about Hyunwoo and his failed mission to the Galactic Council. She thought about the aliens who had laughed at humanity's request for help. She thought about all the species that had faced the Draconians before and had been destroyed. But she also thought about Minho and his impossible machines. She thought about the human ability to dream of things that did not exist and then make them real. She thought about every time in history when humans had faced impossible odds and had chosen to fight anyway. "All stations," she said into her microphone. "This is Admiral So Young. The enemy is preparing to fire. On my mark, activate all quantum disruptors. Target the entire fleet. Full power." She paused, looking at the screens one last time. The Draconian fleet hung in space like a dark cloud, ready to rain destruction on everything humanity had built. "Mark," she said. Across Earth's orbital defense network, 50 quantum disruptors activated at exactly the same moment. The devices hummed with power that seemed to come from somewhere beyond normal space. Reality itself began to bend around. Them, responding to human will and human desperation. On the Draconian flagship, alarms began to sound. Sensors that had never failed before suddenly could not make sense of what they were detecting. Energy readings spiked beyond anything the instruments could measure. "Admiral," called the sensor officer, "we are detecting massive energy surges from the human defense platforms, but the readings do not match any known weapon technology." Korth looked at his displays. The numbers made no sense. "What kind of weapons are they using?" "Unknown, Admiral. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases." For the first time in his long career, Korth felt uncertain. He had faced many different species with many different technologies, but he had never seen readings like these. "All ships, prepare for evasive action," he ordered. "Unknown weapons detected. Defensive posture." But even as he gave the order, Korth knew it might be too late. The energy building around the human platforms was reaching levels that his instruments could not measure. Whatever the humans were doing, it was beyond anything his species had encountered before. In the command center, Minho watched the readings from all 50 disruptors. The quantum fields were stable. The reality matrices were holding. Everything was working exactly as his equations had predicted. "Field strength at 100%, he reported. "All disruptors locked onto their targets. Quantum matrices synchronized across the entire network." So Young nodded. "Can they detect what we are doing?" "Their sensors are probably going crazy," Minho said, "but they cannot understand what they are seeing. This technology is completely outside their experience." On the screens, the Draconian fleet continued to charge their weapons. They were still planning to destroy Earth's defenses with overwhelming firepower. They had no idea that those defenses were about to do something impossible. Captain Dong Hyun felt his ship shake slightly, even though nothing had touched it. The space around him seemed to be vibrating with energy that he could not see but could somehow feel. "Control, this is Phoenix. I am detecting massive energy fluctuations throughout the battle area. Whatever you are doing down there, it is affecting space itself. Phoenix, maintain your position and continue observing. You are about to witness something that has never been done before." Dong Hyun adjusted his sensors, trying to understand what he was detecting. The readings reminded him of something he had learned in school about quantum mechanics, but on a scale that should have been impossible. It was as if someone was reaching into the basic structure of reality and making changes to the fundamental. Admiral Korth watched his weapons charge to full power. In 30 seconds, his fleet would begin the systematic destruction of human civilization. It would be over quickly. Humans were too primitive to offer any real resistance. But the energy readings from their defense platforms continued to climb. Whatever they were doing, it was building toward something enormous. 10 seconds to weapons ready," announced his gunnery officer. Korth gripped the RA. 2 weeks after the Draconian fleet disappeared from existence, Ambassador Hyun-woo stood once again in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council. But this time, everything was different. The same aliens sat in their same seats, but they were not laughing anymore. They watched him with eyes full of fear and confusion. The air in the room felt heavy, as if everyone was afraid to speak too loudly. Tai Min, the Centauri leader, stood at his podium. His metal-colored skin seemed duller than before, and his yellow eyes kept darting around the room instead of looking directly at Hyunwoo. "Ambassador," Taemin said, his voice much quieter than it had been during their last meeting. "The Galactic Council wishes to formally apologize for any misunderstanding regarding Earth's previous requests for defensive assistance." Hyunwoo nodded politely. "Thank you. Earth accepts your apology. We also wish to extend a formal invitation for Earth to join the Galactic Council as a full member, with all the rights and privileges that such membership provides." The room was completely silent. The same aliens who had laughed at humanity just months before were now offering Earth a seat at the table of galactic power. "That is very generous," Hyunwoo said. "Earth will consider your offer carefully." A blue-furred alien in the front row raised one of its 6 arms. "Ambassador, may we ask what happened to the Draconian fleet? Our sensors detected their approach to your system, but then all contact was lost." Hyunwoo looked at the alien with innocent curiosity. "I am sorry, but I do not understand your question. What Draconian fleet?" "The fleet commanded by Admiral Korth. Over 200,000 ships, the largest military force ever assembled. They were approaching Earth to complete their conquest campaign." "I have never heard of Admiral Korth," Hyunwoo replied truthfully, "and I can assure you that no hostile fleet has approached Earth. Our space has been quiet and peaceful." The tree-like alien that had spoken during Hyunwoo's first visit swayed nervously. "But Ambassador, the Draconians have been conquering worlds for thousands of years. They are the most feared military force in the galaxy. How can you not know of them?" Hyunwoo spread his hands in a gesture of confusion. "Perhaps you are thinking of some other species? Earth has no records of any group called Draconians. Are you certain such a species exists?" The aliens looked at each other with growing alarm. Their own records clearly showed the existence of the Draconian Empire. They had historical data going back centuries. But somehow all physical evidence of the Draconians had simply vanished. Taemin cleared his throat. "Ambassador, we would very much like to establish better relations between the Galactic Council and Earth. Perhaps we could discuss mutual defense agreements, technology sharing, cultural exchanges." "Earth is always interested in peaceful cooperation," Hyunwoo said. "Of course, any agreements would need to be based on equality and mutual respect." "Of course," Taemin agreed quickly. Earth would be treated as an equal partner in all discussions. After the meeting, Hyunwoo walked through the corridors of the council building. Alien diplomats and officials bowed respectfully as he passed. Some tried to start conversations about trade agreements or cultural programs. Everyone was very polite and very careful. It was exactly the opposite of how they had treated him during his first visit. Back on Earth, Admiral So Young received daily reports about the galaxy's reaction to the Draconian disappearance. The results were more dramatic than anyone had expected. "Admiral," reported Commander Yunji, 3 different species have requested permission to establish permanent diplomatic missions on Earth. 2 others have offered exclusive trade agreements for our agricultural technology." "Our agricultural technology?" So Young asked with amusement. "The same technology that the Galactic Council called primitive just a few months ago?" "Apparently it is no longer considered primitive. Also, the Vegan Republic has offered to share their advanced shield technology with us as a gesture of friendship." So Young looked at the reports piling up on her desk. Requests for meetings, offers of alliance, invitations to join various galactic organizations. Every major species in known space wanted to establish friendly relations with humanity. "What about military movements?" she asked. "All hostile forces within 50 light-years of Earth have either withdrawn or requested permission to pass through the area peacefully. Several pirate organizations have announced that they are officially avoiding human space. And the Galactic Council's investigation into the Draconian disappearance? They have quietly dropped the investigation. Officially, they are now saying that their sensors must have malfunctioned. There is no evidence that any large fleet ever approached Earth." So Young nodded. The quantum disruptors had been more thorough than even Minho had predicted. Not only had they erased the Draconian fleet from existence, but they had somehow made the universe forget that such a fleet had ever been assembled. Captain Dong Hyun returned from his patrol mission with more interesting news. Admiral, I encountered a merchant vessel from the Andorian Trade Federation. They wanted to know if Earth would be interested in purchasing advanced starship engines. Purchasing? What do they want in return? A promise that Earth would not consider the Andorians to be hostile. They were very specific about this. They wanted written guarantees that we viewed them as friends. So Young found this amusing. The Andorians had one of the most powerful commercial fleets in the galaxy. Their ships were faster and better armed than anything humanity had built, but now they were afraid of Earth's reaction to their presence. What did you tell them? I told them that Earth has no hostile intentions toward any peaceful species. But I also mentioned that Earth takes a very dim view of anyone who threatens innocent people. And their reaction? They seemed very relieved and very eager to leave our space as quickly as possible. In his laboratory, Engineer Minho continued to study the quantum disruptors. The technology was stable and could be reproduced, but each device required rare materials and months of careful construction. How many more can we build? Asked Dr. Jiho, who had become Minho's chief assistant. We have enough materials for perhaps 20 more devices, Minho replied. But I am not sure we need them. The first test seems to have created a psychological effect that is more powerful than any weapon. Psychological effect? Every species in the galaxy now knows that humanity possesses technology that can make things stop existing. They do not understand how it works, and they do not want to find out by experiencing it personally. Jiho looked at the device they had used to erase the Draconian fleet. It sat quietly on the laboratory table, looking like nothing more dangerous than an unusual piece of art. Do you think we will need to use them again, he asked. Minho considered the question carefully. I hope not. But if we do, the galaxy now knows that humanity is not the weak, primitive species they thought we were. Meanwhile, on dozens of worlds throughout the galaxy, alien leaders held emergency meetings to discuss what they called the human question. The disappearance of the Draconian fleet had changed everything. On the Zentari homeworld, Taemin met with his military advisors. What is our assessment of human capabilities? He asked. Unknown and potentially unlimited, replied his chief scientist. They appear to possess technology that operates outside known physics. Our best theory is that they have learned to manipulate the fundamental structure of reality. Can we develop countermeasures? We do not even understand what they did, much less how to defend against it. Our recommendation is to avoid any actions that might be interpreted as hostile. Similar conversations took place on every major world. Species that had never worried about human opinions now planned their policies around avoiding human displeasure. The Draconian Empire, which had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, was remembered only in historical records. But even those records seemed somehow less clear than they had been before. Scholars found themselves unable to explain exactly how the Draconians had been defeated by other species in the past. 3 months after the incident, Earth received an official message from the Galactic Council. The message was delivered personally by Taemin, who traveled to Earth aboard the most advanced diplomatic vessel in the Centauri fleet. Admiral So Young met with him in Earth's capital city. Taemin seemed uncomfortable in Earth's atmosphere, constantly adjusting his breathing apparatus and looking around nervously. Admiral, he said, the Galactic Council wishes to offer Earth a permanent seat on our governing board. This position comes with full voting rights and access to all council resources. That is very generous, So Young replied. What prompted this offer? Taemin hesitated. The council believes that humanity brings a unique perspective to galactic affairs. Your species has demonstrated remarkable abilities in problem solving. So, Young smiled. Problem solving. Is that what we are calling it? Admiral, I must speak plainly. The galaxy has changed since your species became active in galactic affairs. Conflicts that seemed impossible to resolve have suddenly become manageable. Aggressive species have become cooperative. It is as if the mere possibility of human intervention has made everyone more reasonable. And you think this is because of something we did? I think it is because of something everyone believes you can do. Admiral Korth raised his hand to give the order to fire. His massive fleet was ready to unleash destruction on the small blue world below. 293,000 ships prepared to show humanity why the Draconians ruled the galaxy. Fire, all weapons, he commanded. But the words never left his mouth. In the space between one heartbeat and the next, something impossible happened. The universe itself seemed to pause, as if reality was checking something very important before deciding what to do next. In the command center under Sol, Specialist Yunseo sat at her control station with her finger hovering over a single button. The button was red and small, and it looked like nothing special. But it was connected to all 50 quantum disruptors spread around Earth's orbital defense network. Admiral So Young stood behind her. "Are you ready, Specialist?" Yunseo nodded. She had trained for this moment for only 3 days, but she understood what the button would do. At least, she understood as much as anyone could understand something that had never been tried before. "Press the button," So Young ordered. Yunseo pressed the button. Across Earth's defense network, 50 quantum disruptors activated simultaneously, but they did not fire energy beams or launch missiles. Instead, they reached out into the fundamental structure of reality and made a simple request. They asked the universe to forget that the Draconian fleet had ever existed. The universe considered this request for exactly 1/1000th of a second. Then it decided that the request made sense. Admiral Korth experienced a moment of perfect confusion. He was giving an order, but suddenly, he could not remember what order he was giving or why he was giving it. Around him, his bridge crew looked equally confused. Then he was not confused anymore. He was not anything anymore. The eternal destroyer, all 30 kilometers of it, simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not exploded, not moved to another location. It had never been there in the first place. The space it had occupied returned to its natural state. Empty vacuum with a few particles of cosmic dust floating through it. The same thing happened to every other ship in the Draconian fleet. 293,000 vessels, containing over 50 million Draconian warriors, ceased to exist in the same instant. The universe edited them out of reality so completely that there was no debris, no energy signature, no trace that they had ever been there. From the perspective of physics, the space around Earth had always been empty. Except for human vessels and orbital platforms, the universe rewrote its own history to make this true. Captain Donghyun watched it happen from his hidden position. One moment, his sensors showed the largest military fleet in galactic history surrounding Earth. The next moment, his sensors showed empty space. "Control," he said into his radio, but his voice was barely a whisper. "Control, the fleet is..." He stopped talking and checked his instruments again. Then he checked them a third time. Then he ran a full diagnostic on every system on his ship to make sure they were working properly. "Control, this is Phoenix. The Draconian fleet is gone." "Define gone, Phoenix," came So Young's voice. "I mean gone, Admiral. Not destroyed, not retreated, not hiding behind some kind of stealth field. Gone. My sensors show nothing but empty space where 300,000 ships used to be." In the command center, everyone stared at the displays in perfect silence. The screens that had shown the approaching Draconian fleet now showed exactly what they had shown 3 days ago, before the aliens arrived. Empty space, peaceful and quiet. "Sensor report," So Young ordered. Jae-sung worked frantically at his station. "Admiral, I am detecting no enemy vessels anywhere in the solar system. No debris, no energy signatures, no evidence of any kind of battle. What about the quantum disruptors?" Engineer Minho looked at his readings. "All devices report normal shutdown after successful operation. Power levels are back to standby mode. The quantum fields have returned to normal space-time configuration." "And the fleet? What fleet, Admiral?" "According to every instrument we have, there has never been a fleet here." So Young walked to the main display screen and stared at the image of space around Earth. It looked exactly the same as it had looked every day for the past 50 years. Quiet, empty, peaceful. "Minho," she said quietly, "what exactly did we just do?" Minho sat down heavily in a nearby chair. His face was pale and his hands were shaking. I think we just proved that reality is more flexible than most people believe. The disruptors did not destroy the Draconian fleet. They convinced the universe that the fleet never existed in the first place. But we remember them. We remember the battle preparations, the surrender demands, everything. We were inside the quantum field when the change happened. Our memories were protected, but from the perspective of the rest of the universe, those ships were never here. Yunseo looked at the small red button she had pressed. So they are not dead. They were never alive, Minho explained. Death implies that life existed first and then ended. These beings never existed at all. They have been edited out of reality itself. The implications of this began to settle over everyone in the command center. They had not won a battle in the traditional sense. They had changed the fundamental nature of existence to remove their enemies from it entirely. Admiral, Jae-sung said suddenly, I am receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. So-young looked at him in surprise. Put it through. The image that appeared on the main screen showed Timon, the Centauri leader who had mocked Hyunwoo months earlier. But he did not look mocking now. He looked frightened. Earth vessel, Timon said. This is the Galactic Council emergency response. Team, we detected massive energy signatures from your system. Please respond immediately. So-young activated the communication system. This is Admiral So-young of Earth Defense Command. What is the nature of your emergency? Admiral, our long-range sensors detected the approach of a large Draconian fleet toward your system. We were monitoring the situation to document the outcome. But suddenly, all sensor contact with the fleet was lost. Do you require assistance? So-young looked around the command center. Everyone was watching her, waiting to see how she would respond to the aliens who had refused to help Earth in its moment of greatest need. Council representative, she said calmly, there has been no Draconian fleet in our system. I am not sure what your sensors detected, but space around Earth has been quiet and peaceful. But Admiral, we have clear records of a massive fleet approaching your position. Over 200,000 ships under the command of Admiral Korth. They were expected to reach Earth approximately 3 hours ago. I am sorry, but I do not know who Admiral Korth is. And I can assure you that no hostile fleet has approached Earth. The aliens' confusion was visible even across the vast distance of space. Admiral, this is impossible. The Draconian fleet was the largest military force ever assembled. They have been conquering worlds for centuries. They cannot simply disappear. Perhaps your sensors malfunctioned, So-young suggested politely. Technology can be unreliable sometimes. There was a long silence from the Galactic Council. Finally, Timon spoke again. Admiral, we would like to send a diplomatic mission to Earth to discuss this situation. Of course. Earth welcomes peaceful diplomatic contact with all species. And, Admiral, we understand that Earth previously applied for advanced defensive technology through our council. Yes, that application was rejected. 3 times, I believe. We would like to reconsider that application. Perhaps Earth and the Galactic Council can find areas of mutual cooperation. So-young smiled, though the alien could not see her expression. That sounds very reasonable. We look forward to your diplomatic mission. When the transmission ended, the command center erupted in quiet celebration. People hugged each other and shook hands. A few people cried with relief. But So-young was not celebrating yet. She activated the communication system again, this time calling Captain Dong-hyun. Phoenix, this is Control. Return to Earth immediately. We need a full report on everything you observed. Understood, Control. But Admiral, I have to ask. What am I going to put in my report? That the most powerful military fleet in galactic history simply stopped existing? Phoenix, you will report exactly what you saw. Let the historians figure out what it means. As Captain Dong-hyun began his journey back to Earth, he took one last look at the space where the Draconian fleet had been. Empty vacuum stared back at him as if it had always been empty. But he remembered the massive ships and the terrible weapons they had carried. He remembered Admiral Korth and his promise to destroy humanity. He remembered the moment when it all simply went away. In the command center, Minho was already making notes about the quantum disruptor test. The devices had worked exactly as his theories predicted, but the implications were staggering. "Admiral," he said to So Young, "we need to be very careful about this technology. If we can erase a Draconian fleet from existence, what else might we be able to erase?" So Young nodded. "That is a conversation for another day, engineer. Right now I want you to focus on making sure our defensive systems are ready for whatever comes next. Do you think other species will try to attack us?" So Young looked at the peaceful image of space on her screens. "I think other species are going to be very, very careful about how they interact with humanity from now on,"